Hello again, I'm Stephen Wells, the host of the Motoring Weekly podcast for the Australian Historic Road and Racing community. This is episode 177. This year I've been shining a spotlight on the Australian Motor Heritage Foundation and have been learning about the collections of magazines, books, audio and video that they curate and provide for research and review. They're based out at Sydney Motorsport Park, and as regular listeners will have heard, they hold valuable historical documents for the Australian automotive industry. Now, if you hold historical documents, then it is reasonable to find a historian as part of the volunteer team. One such is Dr. Andrew Moore, who is a widely respected historian and academic, who normally specialises in modern Australian political history and the social impact of sport in the country. He is also a lifelong car enthusiast and in his late teens was an official and flag marshal at Warwick Farm. And this led him in later life to write a brilliant book about the now defunct circuit called Aintree Down Under, Warwick Farm and the Golden Age of Australian Motor Racing. I spoke with him about the Graham Howard collection, a collection of published materials that Howard, a writer and motorsport journalist, had retained over the years. So here's the interview with Dr. Moore. So I'm now with Andrew Moore from the Australian Motor Heritage Foundation. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to start off and can you give the listeners a brief bio of who you are and how you got into motorsport?
Well, I'm a lifelong motor racing enthusiast. In the 1960s, I hoped to be a European rally champion and was very impressed with Gordinis and Alpines. It took me 40 years before I owned a Gordini and Alpine, but I do now. Mm-hmm. And I was a flag marshal at Warwick Farm.
Okay.
Which I loved, and it was a real turning point in my life. I hadn't quite known I would like motor racing as much as I did, but I was a flag marshal and a spectator marshal and helped Mary Packard in the pits at Warwick Farm for some years. When it shut down in 1973, I was a bit disillusioned with motorsport generally for that reason. It seemed quite a travesty actually. I then did some rallying in the 70s, was very unsuccessful at it. And realised I didn't have as much talent as I needed to be European Rally Champion.
Yep.
I did club motor racing and that sort of thing since. But I'm in the Renault Car Club and I'm in the Thoroughbred Sports Car Club, and I guess I love cars. And I was an academic historian. I worked for many years, 30 plus years as an academic historian, mainly at the University of Western Sydney. But also at other universities in Sydney and the UK.
Yeah.
And I developed an interest not so much in cars at that level, but writing about right-wing politics. So I've done that for all my life.
Yes.
I'm trying to get out of it, actually. I'm
Yes.
a bit tired of fascists.
Yes.
But I wrote a book on Warwick Farm. That's what I did in my retirement.
Yeah.
And it was I couldn't have written about another track.
Yes.
It had to be Warwick Farm.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I have learned in interviewing the volunteers and people who are aligned to this foundation. Warwick Farm is a seminal location. Nearly everybody I've spoken to has said their formative years were going to races at that circuit in Sydney.
Well, I guess the same applies to me. I simply put, I loved it. I couldn't have been happier. It was one of the best series of years in my life, I guess. I did practice days in a very asthmatic Peugeot 404, which was not a very good rally car and even worse circuit car, but I enjoyed them very much. And when it shut down, it really was a bit of a blow to me.
Yeah. Why did it shut down? What was the catalyst that caused it to go?
How long have we got?
Okay.
One of the issues was simply that the group which had sponsored Warwick Farm, which was, as it were, Australia's principal club, the very posh and prestigious Australian Jockey Club that ran horse racing there, initially needed the money that motor racing might bring in, and that's what happened. It did bring in some racing, but then money.
Yeah.
And then at a later point, they had the TAB, and that brought in much more money than they could get out of motor racing. They were less inclined to be worried about fixing the fences.
Yes.
AMHF fences were needed, and they just lost interest in it, I suppose.
Sure.
It was costing them money too.
Yeah. Before we get on to what drew you to the foundation, you spoke about the Renaults and the Peugeot and Alpines, Gordinis.
Yes.
What drew you to those European sports cars?
It's a very common story. My first car was a Renault 10. People always, blokes particularly, always love their first car. I really did. And I was in the Renault Car Club. I did as many things as I could: lap dashes, hill climbs, economy runs. Won an economy run. I was always a bit frugal, so that was my one success, really. It shaped my interest in Renaults, and at that time in the early 70s was a period when when rallying was very high profile, and also Bruce Collier, the Renault man of Sydney, was the dominant figure in New South Wales rallying. So I grew to aspire to owning a Gordini.
Yes.
And as I said, it took me 40 years before that happened, but I now own an R8 Gordini that's very good nick, and it's kept in the country. I drive it into town to buy a pint of milk, and it's a very pleasurable drive. I really enjoyed that car.
Yes.
And then later on I bought a new A110 Renault, Alpine, which it's a bit above my class actually, but anyway, it's a lovely car and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I own those things I aspire to do.
Yes.
Don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Right. Well, I learned to drive in a Renault 4.
Oh, right. Yes, I love them.
With the
Yep.
the what looked like the umbrella handle for gear lever in the middle of the dashboard.
Yeah.
And then my father, for some reason, bought us, I can't remember why, a Simca 850, a rear drive, rear engine Simca 850. And in my youth, I managed to spin that into a stone wall one night, which resulted in being towed back behind a large American Jeep on a rigid tow bar in the dark with only 2 red lights in front of me to find out what was going on. So I have fond memories of French cars as well.
I really like Renault 4s too. Actually, come to think of it, I like most cars as it happens, but I like Renault 4s at the time.
So why did you come and volunteer at the Heritage Foundation?
Well, it evolved gradually, and I suppose it started, from my point of view, when I met Hugh King on our motoring tour of Europe. We became friends, and indeed I wrote much of the text, or researched much of the text of Warwick Farm, my book Aintree Down Under, underneath the house that Hugh then owned in Clifton Gardens, because his library was set up underneath the house. I spent many happy days there, and then when he expressed an interest in doing what has evolved into this colossus you see today, we were talking about various places, and a group of us even went to Bathurst to have a look at Bathurst as a possible site.
Okay.
It didn't transpire. This is the perfect site. I don't know that we would ever expected to get something as good as this.
No, I think this is absolutely spot on for a location with the track in the distance behind us.
Yeah, I mean, we're a volunteer group, and at one level we have no money, so that's not good. But we do enjoy the support of the Australian Racing Drivers Club, and it seems strong support, and that's very, very good indeed. I mean, in a way, it's their educative role, isn't it, to the ARDC?
So you were an academic researcher and author of the book on Warwick Farm. That led you to the connection with Hugh along the way, and then as this place evolved, you then came in to start looking at some of the documentation. Did you have an immediate focus when you came in?
I can remember one of the early days when actually Colin and I were driving out. I formed the idea that I could actually do something with the Graham Howard papers. Working through manuscripts, sorting them, reading them was really my stock and trade as an historian. I sat in countless libraries for countless years.
Yep.
And it seemed to fit naturally. Also, I knew Graham Howard. I had a very high opinion of Graham Howard.
Yeah.
He was Australia's most significant motor racing historian.
Okay.
He wrote a brilliant book, one of the best books on Australian motoring, on Lex Davison. And he was also very generous with his files. I knew he had these very good files because I also write articles for the Australian Dictionary of Biography.
Right.
And if ever I was writing an entry on, say, Ray Revell, Speedway driver, I would find that Graham had a file on him. He was happy to share it with me. I could then do much of the research of that without too much trouble at all for these little articles in the Dictionary of Biography.
How big is the collection?
It's massive. I mean, at one level it fits into one room, so it doesn't sound that big, but maybe several 100,000 files, 4 huge filing cabinets, double filing cabinets, maybe 5 actually, come to think of it. But they're sort of divided into individuals and into marks, into circuits.
Right.
So they're really quite well organised. All I did was sort of sort out the organisation and make a correct an Excel spreadsheet of it. It had had a few locations, the Graham Howard papers. I actually read them for the first time when I was working on the Warwick Farm book, when the papers were in a lockup in Chatswood, in a mezzanine level of a large lockup. A wealthy man who, again, kindly had allocated space to it. But it seemed to me a good thing to do, and everyone agreed that was what I should do, and it suited me admirably.
So you spoke about Graham being, a very important historian here in Australia.
Yeah.
What was his background?
Well, he, as you can see in the papers, he worked for TAFE for a long time. I think he was a freelance journalist too, so he did that. He must have worked for more or less every motoring journal there was at some point or other.
Yes.
He worked for Racing Car News, and he was also a commentator for the ABC and on motor racing. And he was commentator or sitting in a ground commentator at Warwick Farm as well, down at Creek Corner, which was the iconic, very sharp corner at the end of Hume Straight, the longest straight Warwick Farm.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was a highly respected figure. I first invited him to come to a conference, an academic conference, in 2003 because I was trying to ensure that one of the groups I belonged to, the Sports History Society, could do something other than write about cricket and football. So I had I organised a section in this conference on, I called it Marginalised and Mislaid Sports.
Right.
And Graham was the motor racing guy, and he was very good. He enjoyed it, and from that time on, we sort of knew each other fairly well and got it on well, and liked each other.
Yep.
So.
And you say in the notes said he died around 2013.
He did.
So what happened to his collection from that point to when it arrived here at the foundation?
Well, 2 of his friends who were important figures here too, Gary Simpkin and Terry, his name, I'm sorry, I can't remember his surname, but he was an equally significant figure. They took possession of it, which was lucky they did, because one of the weird things about Graham Howard is that he moved around house to house. I mean, we all know what a pain moving house is. It must have been extraordinary for him. So these 2 colleagues decided to keep the papers, and they moved initially to this locker. Yeah. And then it went to Terry's garage at one point. It must have had a very big garage.
Yes.
And they were very, very kind to consider putting it here, and that's what happened. It was put here.
Yeah. And how long have you been working on it?
A couple of years.
Okay.
And I could do more. I have written a couple of... it's just that you can't really you don't, as an historian, I know that serendipity rules. So that, for instance, I was interested in writing something on a man named Walter Warneford, who would be a name slightly familiar to motor racing people in this country. His company used to make very good manifolds for carburetors, and every hot Holden in the 1960s burbled around on Warneford. But anyway, that was him, and I just thought there might be a file here. I was trying to connect two things.
Yes.
And there was a file, Walter Warneford here, so I've written, I can write.
Yes.
Here am I just thinking about writing something Walter Warneford, and hooray, there's a file there on Walter Warneford, so yeah.
And the work that you've done, is that to re-index and reclassify the collection?
Yes, but I didn't need to the Excel spreadsheet needed correcting a little bit, but it was a very good spreadsheet that Terry and Gary did, so I only really corrected it. But I went through every file in this large collection, and as I said, there's probably, there's certainly 100,000 files, there might be 200,000 files. I never bothered to count. But it was very pleasant doing it, and I'm still going to write various things on Graham Howard. I've still got work to do on that. It's an ongoing project.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then are you seeing that work being then connected into some of the other sections here? So if you've got articles on a particular person, you could then tie it to another set of books or articles on that person?
Well, there are motor racing results. So we have Rod Chivers working Mr. Results, so he's used them too. Yes. Lots of people have found some point in these papers, which is not surprising. He was really a great motor racing historian.
And it's fascinating that even in his time, he realised the importance of holding and retaining this information for later use, whether it was for as part of his work, or for others as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people don't realise, is that it's not just a guy sitting there with a bunch of magazines that he's holding on to. He's actually done it for a purpose. Yeah,
and he was very generous with the files. As I said, if I wanted to write something on Norman Beechey, you only had to ask him, and off came the Beechey file in the mail. So he must have had some sense that this was an important matter.
Yeah,
I don't know. Perhaps he spoke to Terry and Gary beforehand, before his demise. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, certainly collecting that and being able to reference his for his own work, and then knowing that it would have some later use, because history is such an important part of our lives, and people sometimes forget, especially when in your youth, that what we do today we've learned from our predecessors.
Indeed, yes.
And having that history means that hopefully you don't make the same mistake again, or if somebody does make the mistake again, then there's two bits of information for the next generation to say, look, it failed twice, perhaps this isn't a good idea.
That's right.
And so, when I've been talking to other volunteers here about other people that they're honouring in the foundation, it's all about what they've learned and then sharing it or giving it to the next generation.
Yeah. I mean, I did teach history for 30 years, so I am, more than familiar with the argument that you can't understand the present without understanding the past.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it sounds trite, but it's actually true.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't understand present events in America without understanding events in Germany after 1933, for instance.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's here for the benefit of all Australians. It's an education research facility. We're quite proud of it, I think, the project. All of the guys here.
Yeah, and I think it's important. We today, you've got some upcoming drivers in Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2 that are from Australia, New Zealand. You've got some of the, Oscar Piastris in Formula 1. You've got others that are about to break in. If you don't understand where they've come from, it's very difficult to understand them as a human and as a person. But to be able to go back, and you referenced Norm Beachley earlier, to be able to say, well, who was he as a person? You've got documents and images and video here in this foundation of that person. So you can actually be transported back to when he was in his heyday racing his cars.
Oh, indeed, exactly.
And for you personally, how does your work here impact the foundation, and what do you feel about the foundation in general?
One of the things I didn't know in general until I met Hugh King, and also had a friend in Trafalgar who was a great collector of books about motoring. I didn't know that there were book people who were car people, or car people who were book people. I had not met them before. I met Hugh King, and I met my friend Max Keith in Trafalgar. And so I always thought a bit of an outsider in my life. How come I'm the only person who likes books and is a book person? My job was books.
Yes.
And then also has a love of cars. My wife always says that I disguised that fact until I retired, but I'm not sure that I did that, but I probably didn't have the time to pursue the car interest.
Yes.
So to me it's wonderful. I love Wednesdays coming out here, and a nice group of people, and they are book people and car people.
Yes.
And as I said, I had no idea they existed.
Yes.
It's been a good thing for me.
Good.
Very much enjoyed it.
Good. Well, thanks for your time this morning.
You're very welcome.
Andrew, it's been great to catch up and learn about Graham Howard, but also learn a bit more about you as well. I'm sure we'll see each other at an event. I quite often see the thoroughbred and sports car guys around the place, so I'll probably see you in one of the vehicles at one of the events that we're both at.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It was great to catch up with Dr. Moore and learn more about the Graham Howard collection. It was quite an accomplishment to build this collection, which is now in the safe hands of the Foundation. And if you would like to volunteer to help the Foundation with their curation of documents, magazines, books and videos, head over to motorheritage.org.au/volunteer and register your interest. There is always a lot to do, and they always need help. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to your favourite player, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible or Samsung, and YouTube, to get the episodes delivered as they're published. You can also subscribe to the website motoringweekly.com.au, and you'll also get notified when a new episode is uploaded, and you can listen to all the episodes there if you don't use a podcast app. And from this month, we also have the podcast delivered through Mixcloud, which, like Spotify, was originally designed for music and now hosts radio programs and podcasts. So if you like classic rock music, then once you've listened to Motoring Weekly, go find White Rabbit Radio, which is our sister radio program. We do classic cars and classic rock. I'm Stephen Wells, and you've listened to Motoring Weekly, the podcast for the Australian historic road and racing community.